All right. Hello, everybody. This is Case Study QB, and we are in the Progressive War Room with Jen Perelman. Please, Perelman, Miss Perelman, say hi to the people.
Hi to the people.
All right, let me introduce her. Jen Perelman has a YouTube channel and podcast called Generational Change, which features up-and-coming progressive candidates and leaders of progressive policies. She also ran against Debbie Wasserman Schultz in the Democratic primary in 2020. So we are in the Progressive War Room, and for those who are not familiar, this is where we strictly talk strategy. We talk and also try to demystify candidates who ran for office. They're going to talk about their experience. They're going to let you know some tips and tricks, because basically we want as many people, we want you to know that it's not a hard thing, even though it is hard, but anybody can run for office, and we want to demystify that experience for you. All right, so the first thing I want to ask you, Jen, is after you ran, what made you start your own show? Because you've been really busy with your show, and I really like it. Go ahead.
So coming off of the campaign in 2020, we had a really big platform. You know, we had amassed a chunk of Twitter followers. We had this big platform, and we also had a really good core group of local volunteers. And my campaign was a service-based campaign. So we were out doing community service in our campaign. That's what we were doing. And so essentially the idea was to keep that going. So we have our local community-based organization going, and then we took our platform and decided to turn it into a podcast based on, I was already doing these live streams during the campaign and interviewing really cool people, because I really thought the campaign's primary purpose, was to help build the coalition. And part of that is education. So yeah, the end goal is to get someone elected. And we could talk about that. Like, I have different theories on what the purpose of campaigns are outside of just the one end result. Okay. So we transitioned and we use it as a platform, and we're growing slowly but surely. YouTube doesn't make it easy. That's awesome. So for everyone, I'm going to go through, ask a couple questions about Jen's campaign back in 2020 when she ran against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And then we're going to get into the strategy side, where she's going to give her idea about a telethon. And we're going to talk strategy of how the left media leaders, that's who I call, all the leaders, everyone on the different sides of the spectrum. I know we all have beef with each other, but we do. Jimmy Dore does have almost 1 million subscribers. Then you have TYT, who has almost 1 million subscribers, and we have to figure out a way to strategize, come together, and push progressive policies like Medicare for all, et cetera, et cetera. So the first question I want to ask: what did you learn from your time running as a progressive candidate in Debbie Wasserman Schultz district? As a first-time candidate, you're spending so much time just trying. There is definitely a learning curve with campaigns. It's like anything else. And I always say it's kind of like having a temp business. And what makes that difficult is that you can't, like with a regular business, if you do something and you don't like how it's done, we'll do it differently. But campaigns are so short term that you don't really have that opportunity. So the mistakes that are made, a lot of times the lessons are not anything that are going to be able to be applied in that campaign. And I think that is one of the reasons why people often run more than once. You really do learn as you go. But I think that the key thing is you really learn who are power players that are important, who are power players that just scream into the echo chamber but really don't have any ground game. Okay. And you start to realize, like, also who is going to try to help and who is going to try to tear you down. And a lot of that, and when you say you want to talk about why the left, progressive doesn't get together, I think this is also relevant in local politics, is you've got so many different egos, and there are so many people that are more concerned with their career and getting credit than they are with actually advancing a progressive agenda. And it's the same thing in the media context. And I think that's why a lot of people, we eat our own. The left tends to punch sideways.
And I tell people, when people spend more of their time criticizing other candidates or other content creators instead of talking about the issues, that's a red flag. And so as a candidate, I mean, for me, I always went into it knowing that it wasn't about me, that it was about getting this policies passed and really trying to help at a local level, our community here. So I don't think that was eye-opening for me in terms of like the vitriol that comes at you, because that wasn't why I was in it anyway. But I mean, I think the biggest thing that you learn is who's on your team.
Nice. Now, you did mention, you said something about that's why people usually run twice. I was wondering, what's your philosophy on that? Because I'm thinking, as a grassroots candidate, you almost should just commit to running twice. Like automatically, I'm going to start asking people that, like, are you running twice? Because it's like the first time you run, you set up your infrastructure, you get your super volunteers, you know about that. You get the people who you know you can really trust, and then your community also starts to get to know you. So you're building your brand that first time around, and it's almost like the Cory Bush rule, right? You build your brand the first time, and then you run the second time, and you have a better chance at winning. What do you think? You think like progressive grassroots candidates should just automatically put in their mind, okay, I'm running twice? What do you think?
I think that what you're saying about name recognition is key. That is definitely the biggest element for somebody that's new. But the decision to run again, there are other variables, and it really is. And this is something I say to anybody considering running for anything. You really need to understand what you're bringing to the party. And I don't mean the political party. I mean, like, what we're trying to do. And if that's what's most needed in that seat that you're running for. And the problem is, a lot of times people, they wake up and decide, I want to run for office. I'm going to do this. And it's this top-down approach to, I'm going to be the candidate and I'm going to sell myself and I'm going to get people to vote for me. Yeah. The more organic way, and now speaking of Cory Bush, the more organic way to run for office is for it to be people that come up as leaders from the community, from the ground up, as opposed to just deciding, waking up and being like, I'm going to run for office and I'm going to squeeze a round peg into a square hole. Yeah. Every seat is different. Every demographic is different. Every candidate is different. And so it isn't all the same. And that's one of the things that I find important that people need to know is the first step in deciding if you want to run for office is what I call, you really need to have a real self-awareness, come to Jesus moment about yourself. And if this is really, not everybody is meant to do that as their contribution. Just like not everybody is going to be a rocket scientist. Not everybody is going to, not every job is meant for every person. Like I could never be an architect. That just would never happen for me. So like, there's just certain things. And I think people need to have a good amount of self-awareness, and not only about, is that the right job for them, but are they going to be the right candidate for that district? Because there is an element of, no matter how much name recognition you get, no matter how much money that you have, if you are not the right fit as a representative for that position, that district, those constituents, then it doesn't matter how big of a name you have. So there's variables, and it really is very case specific. But the most organic way is to be someone that is a community leader and is sort of being propped up by the people that are your people, and to represent them, as opposed to me deciding I'm running and shoving it down your throats. And I really think that that's an important thing. And a lot of times the self-awareness might not give people the answer they want. And the characteristics of somebody that really should do this, I always say you need to have a very small ego and very thick skin. Okay. And those two factors are really key. Okay. They're key. And you will find people that have very thick skin, but they're massive ego. Or they have small ego, but they're really sensitive. And so they don't have the thick skin. So it's a combination that, and not that you couldn't do it otherwise. I have just found that those are qualities that make the process, I think, workable. Okay. And what I've seen is success stories. Okay, so let me ask you this question that this is brought up. What made you run? And I know that I think Tim Canova was the person who ran before.
Yeah. So, and do you have any connection with him? Like, did you help him run that very first time? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I actually worked on his 2016 campaign, and was friends with him and did a lot of stuff. And then basically when we decided we were running, I approached him first and wanted him to sort of be like my Apollo Creed. And instead of kind of doing that, he took the opposite approach and took it like a personal slight, and even though he had no intention of running again. Wow. And then he spent the better part of our campaign spreading lies about us, telling people I was taking George Soros money. He's the reason I was ghosted by Jimmy Dore. So Tim Canova ended up, instead of helping progress, he was very much an impediment to progress based on his ego.
Wow.
And so that's a big part of it. But ultimately, the decision for me was a timing issue. I have been watching Debbie Wasserman Schultz her entire congressional career. She's been my representative, and she was our Florida legislator prior to that. So essentially, she's been representing this district for the better part of 30 years.
Wow.
And the corporate money hand over fist, and just the things that were going on, the climate issues, all of the healthcare, the things that I know she's never going to address. And over the years of my life, people would say things to me like, you should run for office. And because I'm willing to speak truth to power, and I'm willing, and I am in a privileged position where I don't have to work. And that is something that is a huge impediment to people running for office. We could talk about that. But really, my business partner, who ended up my campaign manager and is now my co-host on the show, we just started talking. And when he started learning of my demographic and my background, again, this is strategy. He sort of he said, it could be you. You could do it. You could run against her. You have the right demographic. I'm a middle-aged Jewish woman from this area. I'm a second-generation Jew to North Miami Beach. And that, unfortunately, is the demographic here that we're talking about. And that is why Debbie sits as she sits. And so really, it wasn't the first time someone suggested I run for office, but it was the first time that anybody offered to help and do it with me. So it was really the timing of it. And then plus we were talking about in 2018, when I saw that some non-corporate candidates were able to break through. And, for years, my three things, I always said, I don't lie, I can't be bought, and I smoke weed.
Okay.
And those three factors, which were impediments for years, to not be able to be bought, it never really occurred to me that I could do that. And then after 2018, I just saw, it's possible. And so it was a timing. It was like a perfect storm of him offering and where I was community wise and where I was kid wise with more time on my hands. It was the timing issue.
Okay. And I want to give a shout out to our people in our chat, Jesus CMT 63, and I believe Josh Davis. Just want to give some love to the chat. So with that said, let's talk about some of the mechanics of your district and of Florida. So I'm curious, what organizations did you try to court, some local organizations? So, for example, one of my political junkies, we have our show every Monday at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time for those people listening. And some of my Florida political junkies, they talked about these organizations called the Florida for All, which is a group of organizations, SEIU, Planned Parenthood, Action, Organized Florida, New Florida Majority, Florida Immigrant Coalition Votes, Faith in Florida, and Dream Defenders. These are some of the organizations. Did you try to court their endorsement, or how did that go?
Yeah, well, look, we tried to court every endorsement, but as much as those organizations would like to be, kind of trailblazers and really out there, the bottom line is they pretty much all bend the knee to establishment. And that's just the way it is. They ultimately, some of them, they didn't necessarily endorse Debbie, but they weren't necessarily willing to get involved in our race. Our race was primarily ghosted. Mostly, I do believe the result of her just controlling the situation. SCIU is interesting. That of all those organizations, that's a labor union. And that's the only one that's a labor union. And so really, that's the one that I would love to get. And I'm thinking that and even if it's not me going forward, that might be a possibility with them. But the rest of those organizations do a lot of good groundwork. Okay. But when it comes to the political endorsements, they bend the knee.
Okay.
They just do.
Okay. Yeah, and that seems like that's with labor unions. You know, we saw that with Bernie's campaign in Nevada, especially, where he ended up really doing well. But before the vote happened, you know, a lot of the labor unions were hemming and hawing about, oh, we might want to endorse Biden, but there was so much strength that they just canceled out their endorsement. They didn't endorse anybody.
Exactly.
And so it seems like the top of the head of unions usually side with the establishment, but all the other organizations, let me ask this question: did any of them support Tim the first time, or did they support any progressive candidates? Even now, sure. Do they support anybody even now, like in the next race?
I haven't seen that. The candidates that those organizations, I mean, look, the New Florida Majority endorsed Elizabeth Warren, you know?
Okay.
So these organizations really, it depends on whoever their higher up is, who they're in bed with. That's it.
Okay.
That's what this is. This is like a high school popularity contest and if you want to talk unions, that's really its whole own category of discussion. And that way that that's done is very different. We have a serious impediment to progress at our local level through the unions. The local head of our Broward AFL-CIO, his name is Dan Reynolds, is the biggest impediment to progress for labor in Broward County.
Okay.
He is somebody that is figuratively in bed with Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the big money. And he sells his rank and file down the river every single election by not allowing them. He didn't even allow us to be screened, which is a violation of their own bylaws.
Wow.
And so the kind of stuff that labor does is very dependent on who the union leaders are in bed with. Okay. That's it. Now, we did get the iron workers took a stand and endorsed me against the AFL-CIO. Most of them were scared. We did get a few organizations to just not endorse her as a, you know, that they didn't endorse me, they endorsed her. And that's one of the things we need to consider going forward. So when people ask me if I'm going to run again, a lot of it's going to come down to how much union support we can get up front, because it really does matter. And going into this I'd love to create an insurgence against Dan Reynolds, because most of these unions, the rank and file, are being very negatively impacted by the AFL-CIO religiously endorsing Debbie Wasserman Schultz. She was one of a handful of Democrats that voted to fast track the TPP. She is one of the most anti-labor people that you could have. And yet they keep endorsing her. And all of these rank and file people that don't know better, they just go in there and they look at the slate card and they vote.
So I would think that the rank and file, they vote for whoever's their president, right? And I don't know how often they vote, if it's once a year or once every 4 years. Right. Have you ever interviewed any of union people, or especially from your local union? Go ahead. Yeah,
actually, that's one of the reasons we started having our labor series, our Monday night live stream. We do a labor segment and we bring on different labor leaders and we talk to them. But I want to be very clear that the leaders of our locals, so whether it's Jason Smith is the head of our Broward firefighters, he's amazing. Like the head of our locals were very supportive. But because of their membership in the AFL-CIO, they essentially all basically cower under that bigger union umbrella. And Dan Reynolds keeps them all in line. Okay. And I will keep saying his name because I have left messages for him. He won't answer them. He ghosted us completely. And this person is just completely impeding progress.
Wow. Here. I need to start watching a show on you said Mondays?
We do. Look, every time we can get it's called Uplifting Labor, and we focus on that a lot. And even if we don't have a labor guest, we usually tie what we're doing into labor issues. Okay. We believe that is the key to any progressive movement going forward is going to be through labor.
And give the other days that you have other days that you have specialized, like Wednesday. Go ahead.
No, we do Mondays and Thursdays. We have 2 live streams a week. Mondays, we generally focus on Florida issues and labor. Okay. And then on Thursday, it's more of just a general, it could be, it'll be anybody from experts on, like I said, modern monetary theory. We've had, I had Josh Hamilton come on and talk about his book about Brexit. Okay. It's different things that I think will eventually build coalitions for the left.
Nice.
And educate. I mean, that's really what it's about.
Yeah. So the reason why I said that I want to start watching your money is because I feel like the way union works, the inner workings, the politics of the inner workings of union, not them trying to court or work with Democrats. It seems like that's a whole different world. Like, I spoke to someone from the DSA, I interviewed someone, and they said that they even had the union bosses fix their elections. Like, it's almost like the DNC stuff going on. You know how they messed up with Bernie and stuff. Like, within unions, they do all these shenanigans within themselves, and they're supposed to be the people that we look to help organize and bring Medicare for all. And they're the ones, like we just talked about in Nevada. They were the union heads were fighting against Medicare for all the most. Is absolutely ridiculous. So let me ask you also this question. So these other organizations, are you I don't know, have you interviewed the heads of these other organizations, or do you plan to in the future?
Like, for example, Dream Defenders. I had I did the endorsement inquiry. I did all the stuff. I want to say any of those organizations that were open to endorsing in my primary, I probably would have submitted the papers for it. Sunrise Movement endorsed.
Oh, okay.
You know what? I'm trying to. Our Revolution endorsed. Like, we had big. I was a brand new Congress slate candidate, so we had organizations that did. But of the ones that you're talking about, that little coalition is fairly beholden to the establishment here, and very specific. And I don't know if that's everywhere, but I can only speak specifically to South Florida. Okay, gotcha. So, my question: would you be able to bring them on your show, or would you invite them to your show to talk to, like, kind of demystify that situation? Maybe. Sure. I'm just curious. Okay. I would talk to anybody. And that's something that gets me in trouble all the time. I get in trouble for whose shows I go on. I get in trouble for which guests I have, and this is why the left can't get nice things and can't get out of its own way, because I won't talk to so-and-so. Oh my God, you had Vosh on your show? Oh, you went on Tim Pool's show? Like, that kind of crap is why we can't have nice things.
Yeah, now I totally hear you on that one. So you're a brand new Congress slate. Tell me a little bit about that. Did they help? Because I've heard of something called ghost endorsements or something like that, where people, they endorse you, but then they don't do anything. Like, their volunteers don't help. They don't give you a little bit of money. How did that work out?
Well, I want to say that what is Brand New Congress now as an organization is different. I know that the people have changed. It's not the same. So when I'm talking about my experience, people have to understand that it was a different incarnation of what is right now. So I'm not speaking as to now. They were great to me. I went to, we had a summit, which is where I got to meet Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman and all of our slate mates. And we were all there, and it was awesome. They provided a wealth of information. What they provided, it wasn't financial. It was support. So, we need help figuring out something about, we need help with a web designer. Oh, we can help you. We could find someone who would want to do that for you. Or we need help with, we were having issues, I want to say, with the getting the email lists and like different things. They would have people that they knew in their network that would be willing to work for free, that were basically volunteers. So they provided help. Now, I do think that when I was one of their slate mates, originally they had said that the prior season they had taken on too many candidates and they were spread too thin and they weren't going to do that again. And then they ended up doing that again. So I think, like, when I first went on, there weren't that many candidates. And then throughout the season, they kept picking up more and more candidates, so that by the end of the 2020, there were so many BNC candidates that there's no way you could provide support to all those candidates. Yeah.
I'm wondering if there should be like a two-tier endorsement for these organizations, because I totally can sympathize. You only can get so many donations. You can only build up so much money to then distribute it to everybody to be, and for it to be helpful. You could give everybody $1, but that's not going to help everybody. So I know Justice Democrats, their second time around, their second cycle, they did that strategy where they had a lot less people and they tried to focus on them. So I wonder if there should be a two-tier endorsement, like a main endorsement, which means that we're going to actively have our volunteers help you. We're going to give you $10,000. Once we endorse you, we'll give you $10,000 or whatever amount of money is significant to help. And then a second endorsement, which is just to shine a light on a person, because I think that's helpful too, to be able to, on your Twitter, on like, let's say Brand New Congress, their Twitter account, they can say, hey, we really like this person. We can't do a main endorsement, which is give them money, give them our volunteers, but we want to shine a light. I wonder what do you think about that?
Yeah, that brings me to really what is the mission of the organization. So, for example, I'm on the board of an organization, a new one, formed by one of my BNC Slate mates, Eva Pizzova, and it's called Catching Fire.
Okay.
And Catching Fire is an organization that we are putting out a slate of candidates. There's going to be endorsements. And when we first started, and she asked me to be on the board of this, I really got it very clear as to what is the purpose. Is the purpose of this to give a voice and a platform to candidates that we like based on principle, but would otherwise not get a platform? Or is your mission to win seats and get people in? Those are not always the same thing. And that comes down to how winnable is a seat, the strategy is it. So they decided for Catching Fire that it's really more about giving resources and name recognition to the candidates that we like.
Okay.
And not so much about whether or not they win. Okay. And I think that that's an important distinction and a mission of the organization, because in some ways you can't do both. And I say that now, you can have candidates that you support that also do win. That does happen. But ultimately what we see are a lot of candidates, and especially like you were saying, first time candidates. So first campaign candidates that we can look at and see there's really no path to victory. They really don't have a chance to take down an incumbent. It isn't money related. There's, like I said, there's a lot of variables, but we still want to promote them. We still think that's an important message. We still think that's an important campaign in pushing progress forward. And that's like what I was saying to you before about what is the purpose of a campaign. And it's not just a means to an end. And so I think if your goal as an organization is to prop up righteous candidates that we really want, that we think would be great, even if we know they're not going to win, then that's your mission. And you do that, and you do that, and you do it strong. But if you are really looking at races that are winnable, that's a slightly different strategy. It really is. And I know people don't want to hear that, because people would want to hear that anybody can win and all you need is the right amount. That's not reality.
No, you're right. You got to break down the demographics of the district. You got to see, is this a plus blue or is this a plus red district?
Is this the right candidate for this district? Are these people, like I said, it isn't just name recognition. If I take like a Latino male name, and I start promoting that, and it's a Latino male, and there's millions of dollars behind this candidate, he's still not winning this district. You know what I mean? It is what it is.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Definitely. Let me ask you this question from the chat room. CMT63 said, what can we do about the 3 ballot initiatives that were overwhelmingly passed and our state and governor has been trying to change after the fact, Jen? And I'm sure they talk about Florida. So they talk about the Medicare, medical marijuana, allowing people who have served their time, and the $15 minimum wage. I didn't know he's trying to prevent the $15 minimum wage. Also, I didn't know that.
Oh, he's going to spend all his time doing that. First of all, DeSantis is mini Trump. So whatever Trump would do, DeSantis is doing. Oh, wow. That's all. He is no different. He's there because of Trump. He represents that mentality. That's what he's doing. We don't just have a problem with the governor, and I want to be very clear. We have a problem with our legislature. So Florida is very red when I'm talking about our legislature. So red that honestly, I respect the Democrats that go up there, but it's really it's somewhat of an exercise in futility in a lot of cases, which is why we can only get things passed by referendum, because the things that are popular, which really goes to show you that even though Trump won our state, we overwhelmingly passed a $15 minimum wage, which proves the point that I've been saying all along, is that if the labor and the populists don't come together from the right and the left, we're never getting anywhere. But the governor is just the final straw of impediment. And as far as what we can do, I feel like I'm doing it. We're all doing it, just putting it out there, getting as much support as you can, bringing as much attention to these issues as possible. Now, regarding the formerly incarcerated people that were then given their right to vote back, that ended up going through the court system and coming out in our favor. And so right now, that amendment that we passed is the standing law.
Nice,
The bill
nice.
that the legislature tried to put in as an impediment to block it even after it passed, that was overturned in our court system. So technically, right now, our law is formerly incarcerated people are eligible to vote, period.
Nice. Okay.
And so that was good.
Yeah.
The $15 minimum wage, we still have yet to see about that. But yeah, no, it's hard because what our people want. Look, we have a legislature that not only do we need 60% for something to pass, then they were trying, once we were able to do that with cannabis, then they were trying to raise it to 65%. It used to be 51%. You needed a majority to pass. Then because stuff started passing, they raised it to 60 and now they were trying to raise it again.
Oh my God.
So we're fighting an uphill battle, but it isn't just our governor, it's our entire state legislature.
Yeah, I remember with the situation with prisoners being able to vote, they came out with something where you had to pay off your debt from when you was in prison before you could vote. And I think that's one of the things that Bloomberg did that was actually good was I think he spent like $400 million to pay off people's debt. Is that right, Jen?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, granted, from him, I see it as a publicity stunt, of course. Ultimately,
go ahead.
I'll just tell you this. Like, so I at one point had a meeting with Desmond Meade, and Desmond Meade, I don't know if you know who he is. He's the head of Florida Rights Restoration Coalition, which was the group that spearheaded Amendment 4. Yeah. These were the people that did that.
Oh, okay,
and we met with him afterwards, after it passed, and they started doing all these shenanigans trying to circumvent it in our state house. And I had a meeting with him, and he wasn't thrown or upset in the least. And the reason is this: they fully expected it. They wrote the amendment in such a way where they tested it in different focus groups, and they know that if it didn't allow for paying fines and fees, it would not have even passed. And really, ultimately, what they were trying to do, Florida had a lifetime ban.
Okay.
Florida was one of a handful of states that if you had a felony on your record, you were never allowed to vote.
Wow.
And never.
Crazy.
And it was, there's still a few states that have the lifetime ban. And ultimately, FRRC's goal was overturning that ban. And so what people have to realize is sort of like when you go into a negotiation, if you want 50, you don't go in asking for 50, you go in asking for 100.
Got to.
And so there was a lot of planning and a lot of strategy into that amendment that people don't realize. So when the legislature started doing that, that was fully expected by them. And the amendment was written in such a way that it could withstand it. So, and we ended up in the right place. Nice. So I want to say that even though our legislature tried, they were prepared for it.
Nice.
That's just the kind of shenanigans that you get in a place like Florida.
Yeah, I was going to say that I'm surprised. Are you surprised that Bloomberg has pretty much in the Biden administration, it can't be found, actually, now that I bring him up. Or am I wrong? I don't know if I've seen him anywhere.
No, well, he purchased DNC from the Clinton Foundation. Okay. They sold it to him, I guess. I don't know if their well was running dry. And then he just recently came in and bought the Florida party and installed a former Republican as the head of our state Democratic Party.
Really? Well, how recent is that?
Diaz.
How recent is that? Like within the last couple months or something? Or how recent was that? Oh, wow.
Yep, it was. It might have been in January. No, it was like January when the new board came in for the Florida party. And Bloomberg bought our party.
Wow, that's crazy.
They were having a lot of financial, and that's how is how you get control of things. You bail out state and national political parties, and then you own them.
Well, that's how he got a lot of mayors to endorse his campaign, because he had a whole organization that would donate to mayors all across the country. And, I know that's one of the things that he used his money for. And then he made that big promise that he was going to keep people employed all the way through. And then he reneged on that promise because he spent like $500 million for nothing on a vanity project. So, man, there was another sporadic question that I had. If it comes back to me, I'll ask you that question. But you know what? Let's start getting into the strategy of things. All right. So first, I want you to, you articulated a little bit of idea that you had. So I want you to really take your time and flush out your idea about this telethon and getting progressive leaders together to do this.
Okay. So a few weeks ago, we did a telethon, a live stream telethon for Julian Assange.
Yeah,
that
so some
was
of
my
that.
brainchild from a few months ago. Now,
Nice.
I am someone that has been stressed out about Julian Assange for the better part of 10 years. I don't think most people recognize the severity of the situation. I'd recommend anybody go back, look at the generational change. We have different panels. Some of them were amazing. I mean, they were all great.
Nice.
And really, we had a call to action. Our call to action was we had everybody call up. We had a script. We had everybody calling up and leaving messages at the Department of Justice that we demand that they drop the case against Julian Assange. So I think the key thing is having a call to action when you're having a telethon. Now, obviously, we weren't raising money. That's not what was needed in that particular case. So we'd like to then have the idea of using this idea of a live stream telethon for other issues. Like what other big issues are we facing? So obviously we have Medicare, there's a lot of issues, but they need to have a call to action. And one of the big issues that we would like to deal with is the big tech control of our information and our resources, and how independent sources, whether they're journalists or just content creator, whatever they are, I don't care if it's Alex Jones, and I find him a buffoon, but I don't support deplatforming, period.
Yes.
We've got 3 massive tech companies that essentially censor and control all of the information and control content creators' abilities to even grow their channels. So it's not like it's a level playing field and we're all there and no. It doesn't work that way.
Nope.
And so my idea was to sort of have a telethon type thing, but in order for this to work, it can't really be from me because I'm not a big enough platform. That's just the reality. I'm not. We need somebody like a Joe Rogan, or even if you would get Kyle Kalinske, there's definitely, if you would get certain people together. But what needs to happen is they all need to be streaming simultaneously so that when somebody goes onto YouTube or Twitch, the only thing that is streaming at that minute is basically a whole bunch of us talking about this. And the only way that works is if the biggest independent, people with the most subs are willing to do this. And oftentimes they're not, because they're fine. They've got all their good stuff set and they don't care about the new people coming up. And that's like everything else in this world.
Yeah.
So I would help coordinate. I think that it would be very successful. I don't need credit. I don't even need to be on it. But I really have this vision that the only way that the independent media is going to be able to do anything as far as the control of big tech is for all of them to come together. And the only way that's going to happen is if people will put their ginormous egos aside, which we can't seem to do, and stop punching sideways and realize that this isn't going to work if we're all splintered. It's just not. And so I would plead for somebody like Joe Rogan, and I don't know. Whoever else is huge, platform.
I don't even know if he's still on YouTube. Is he still on? I know he's on Spotify.
He's on YouTube.
Oh, he's still on YouTube?
He's on YouTube.
Because I thought that they would have, want him to be exclusively, since they're paying him a ton of money on Spotify, I thought they would want him to be over there. But he's
on YouTube, but
let's
whoever it is. I put his name out because I just know he has the biggest podcast. It could be a variety of people. And unfortunately, a lot of the people with the largest amount of subscribers aren't left people. They're gamers. They're people that do stupid the biggest subs are not generally the bigger issues. They're what I'm talking about. They're nonsense channels. Yeah.
So if you don't mind, let's really flush out this idea. Let's really talk about this. So I know that Kyle Kalinske, I know Jimmy Doris recently have been talking about the inability to grow like how they used to grow. They used to grow, I think Kyle Kalinske said 30,000 a month, and now it's down to 1,000. So we know they're being effective, small or big. They seem to be affecting these left media leaders, I like to call us, a lot. And so what's the end game? Is you want to have this awareness to pass legislation? And I'm just, now that you're talking about this, I'm thinking in my head like a internet bill of rights, and it could be what we're talking about specifically, where we make these social media, like, you have the Facebooks, you have the YouTubes, and make them utilities where they have to adhere to certain rules, right? Yeah. Am I going in the right direction so far?
I mean, and really, ultimately, these platforms should be nationalized because these are now have become public utilities, and the reason that they aren't is people like Zuckerberg. They pay an inordinate amount of money to our Congress, to people, so that they can maintain their private hold. And they don't want to be made into public utilities, but they're essentially still doing the bidding of the establishment. Like they are doing the censorship of the neoliberal establishment. There's no doubt about it. That's what they're doing.
There's also ideas. I'm sorry. Go finish your thought, Jen.
Yeah. And so really, but the problem with all of this is that the only way people in this kind of world are going to respond, like with regarding Julian Assange, you've got public servants, essentially, like Merrick Garland, that we're reaching out to as people and demanding this. Okay, so we're demanding this. So that's the call to action. But when you're dealing with big tech, what's the call to action? And because the only way to really hit them is in the wallet.
Yeah.
The only thing that's going to make them respond is a money thing. And what there needs to be is some fear that our top sub channels are going to walk.
Yeah.
So it almost needs to be like, what if all of us decided we're not going to be on YouTube anymore? We're going to all move over to Twitch. We're going to leave, or we're going to go to Rockfin or whatever. I don't know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And the only way that it's going to make a difference is if you hit them in their wallet.
That's interesting.
And the only way you can do that is with the top channels with the most subscribers standing up.
That's an idea. And what I was going to say earlier, with the Internet Bill of Rights idea, I know that, and I think I've heard this in other countries where they only allow a certain amount of your information to be on their platform or on the internet, and then after a while it has to die, like I think like a 10-year or 15 years. So that would kind of help, when I can't imagine being a youngster growing up, and I sound like get off your lawn, I sound like a boomer or something, but I'm 27, but I can't imagine.
Please, I'm old enough to be your mother.
I said 27, I mean 37, but
okay, then I'm definitely not old.
No, but even like imagine growing up in elementary school and you have your instant, you made a mistake and you did a sex pic or something. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
Now for the rest of your life, someone's got a picture of you. You can't run for office. You can't, so there should be a way to like remove, and I know it's hard now on the internet, but if we can make that a policy to remove certain things, because you're always going to be growing. Like 10 years, I used to be a Ron Paul supporter when I first got into politics, and now I'm a super, Bernie Sanders progressive. So what if, I was ashamed of that and I didn't want that out there? So that could be another thing. So what do you think about this idea of Internet Bill of Rights that includes the utility idea that you have, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm all for that.
Okay.
But what you're talking about is a little bit different in a sense that you're talking about like individual privacy versus censorship of content creators.
Okay.
And one of the things, and this is one of the things where I really align with Andrew Yang, is the issue of owning your own information and owning your digital information. And I think that is something that definitely needs to be addressed in the Bill of Rights.
Yeah.
Right. And that not only do you own it, but we should be profiting off of it. So that's basically like the dividend. If you're using my information to sell X, then I should get a cut of that, right?
Exactly.
Like just ownership of our stuff.
100%.
And I think that is a huge part of it. But yeah, I'm fully supportive of the idea of an Internet Bill of Rights, but the enforcing it against these big tech companies is just, it's almost like, I feel like we're Sisyphus, and it's just really challenging because until they feel it financially, I just don't think that they care.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you on that. They really have to feel it, and also our legislators have to get educated on it as well, because they have the CEOs of Facebook and Google. They come in front of them and they're like, "How can you teach me how to put my contacts together?"
Well, that's because they paid for their campaign. They buy them.
Yeah, they
buy them. So
lot
if
of
you're
foolish
bought,
questions.
you're going to dance accordingly.
So your idea before about getting all the big YouTubers to kind of leave, it reminded me of what happened to Vine. Do you remember Vine? That 5-second, it was a social media. It's almost like it was almost like Snapchat or Instagram, right? Where it's mainly on your phone, and you only allowed 7-second videos. And this came out probably around the time Instagram, and it was really popular. It was growing. They had people that before they were YouTubers, they got popular off of Vine, and it was growing and growing. But then a group of the most popular Vine people, they saw that Vine was starting to like taper off, and they said, okay, we're gonna come together. They went and talked to the executives of Vine and said, listen, we're going to go really hard. We're going to come together. We're going to collaborate, and we want to push this company to the next level. But we want to cut, right? And they totally just did not listen to them. The Vine executives are like, nope, and boom, and now you haven't even heard of Vine to this point, right? So yeah, this used to be a really popular thing. So I'm wondering how much power are these people going to have when they go to YouTube and say, hey, it would literally, and have you heard of a YouTube union? Like, I think in other countries they're trying to organize.
No, but that's essentially what we're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, that's essentially what you could call it whatever you want, but
yeah.
No, if you had let's say, your top 10 channels going to executives at YouTube and saying, if you don't change the algorithm to help the smaller stations and to level the playing field, we're leaving. Yeah, I think that would matter. Yeah. I do. Yeah. But the thing is that you can't get the people at the top to really care so much about the people at the bottom, because they've already made it. They're at the top. They're not going to ruffle any feathers. And that's what happens is they sort of become they get sucked into the system.
Not only that, if like the big YouTube, let's go with some of the biggest ones. You got PewDiePie is one of the top ones.
Yes.
Then you have what's this guy, Mr. Beast? He's like probably super big right now.
And we tried his burgers, and by the way, not so good. Sorry, just saying.
They're out in Florida, those burgers?
I don't know. We had them. They were delivered.
Oh, okay.
Like,
they were delivered.
There's like I don't know if there's a brick and mortar, but they have like a Grubhub situation.
Okay. Yeah. So these guys, I'm sure they're already, chilling. They're really making a ton of money. So it's almost like the football NFL situation where the quarterbacks who are the most valuable players, literally, and they have their faces or the franchise of their particular teams, if they don't get on board with the players union, the NFL corporation, they could just play, they pay the quarterbacks all the money and leave everybody else to scramble with the crumbs. So that would be it's going to be a challenge. Let's continue to thrush this idea out, if you don't mind. I really like this union. Like, I just brought it up. If we can have a telethon where we're bringing awareness, but then we're also promoting a union. So even the small, you're not going to get the super big people, but even if we get 1,000 smaller channels to say, hey, we want to start in, that's getting somewhere, and who knows what that can snowball. What you think, Jen?
I think that's a good idea. I mean, like I said to you, the biggest issue is coming up with what is the call to action. And so, if the call to action is creating a union, that would be a good one. I think that's good. I hadn't thought of that as a call to action, but that could definitely work. Obviously, when you're doing a telethon, you're wanting people to do something. Yeah. It's right. And I think that's what makes it most effective. So that's what needs to really be worked out, is what is a reasonable call to action, something that can be achieved, and who are the best people to do it? Who do we need to do it? Who do we like? Those are the kinds of strategy ideas. But ultimately, this has to be a massive group effort, regardless of what it is. And regardless of what the ask is, it has to be massive. And you're right. Could it be a whole bunch of small content creators? Maybe. But I think what you need is you have to look at how many cumulative subs you have. I think that's ultimately the number that matters, is how many of YouTube's subscribers are going to be affected. And so, and also you have to imagine is that a lot of our shows have a very crossover audience. So even though someone might have 1 million subs and someone else has 1 million subs, they very well could be the same million subs for a good portion of them.
Yeah.
And so that's another reason why I think it's important to cross genres as far as content and what the creators are. So when you talk about like, what's that, PewDiePie, Cutie Pie, whatever that one is, you know what I'm talking about? Like, I know who it is.
I had myself on mute for a second, but yeah, PewDiePie, Mr. Beast, and all these other people.
So those kinds of people are not usually brought into the dialogue because it's a completely different genre. Yeah. And when we're talking as like you say, you know, left media leaders, that doesn't usually include some of the biggest channels because they're a whole different thing.
Do we know if anybody else has the same problems that we have on the left? Like when the whole adpocalypse happened, I think it was Logan Paul or one of those people, one of the brothers triggered the first adpocalypse. Like, do you know if the other people have the same issue?
I don't know that. I know that what we're dealing with is a big tech joining with, like I said, neoliberal establishment. And so really they're not concerned with people that are gaming and selling burgers. Like that's not going to be on their radar. They have no reason. That's why a lot of those channels can do so well, because they're not threatening the establishment anyway. But when you're talking about content that's talking about, you know, threatening the establishment narrative, that's the information that they're trying to suppress. So I don't know how the algorithm works for the non-political or the non-policy type channels. It doesn't seem to be the same based on the numbers. You know, is that, but I think anybody who speaks truth to power is at risk of being squashed.
That's something that should probably be on that Internet Bill of Rights. And of course, let's talk strategy. I don't know if the Internet Bill of Rights, is it the right strategy to have all these things into one, you know, or maybe we just got to focus on tech utilities and just focus on that. So, you know, that would be up to you and fleshing out this idea. But I wonder if algorithms should be regulated to be transparent. Right? They should be able to describe, okay, or maybe you should be able to pick what algorithm you want. You know, you could say, I'm a conservative, so I want to pick the conservative algorithm, or I'm a liberal, or I just want to pick a randomized algorithm, or the best one that gives you my interests. And when you log into YouTube, you can kind of set what algorithm you want. What you think about that?
That's a good idea. I mean, I'm fine with that. What I don't like is where they're censoring based on certain words or phrases. For example, the word vagina is not allowed.
Thanks a lot, Jen. You just messed me up now. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Go ahead. I'm just kidding. Right? I'm kidding. Yeah, I'm kidding. Yeah.
So, like, there's certain things that, any title of like if you have a thumbnail and any title has the word Amazon in it, you're getting suppressed. Yeah. It depends. And so a lot of content creators, as they become more savvy, they switch their language around and try to dance around some of these things because they know that those words will get red flagged. And they're usually words that speak against the corporate establishment. And anything having to do with, oh God, what was it when Joe Biden was running? Not Tara Reid stuff, but anytime that there's a controversy or an issue that they want to sweep under the rug, any content creator that brings that up is going to get hurt in the algorithm.
Yeah, that happened to Heartlands Media. My guys over there, Kid Cabela.
Oh yeah, Kid Cabela.
Yeah. They did they banned them for a week just because they like mentioned something to do with Biden. And I'm like, it was just totally ridiculous that they didn't no explanation and anything, you know. So go ahead, I hear you.
Well, that's the problem with these being private companies. If these were public utilities, there would have to be due process, and you would have our constitutional rights apply. And that's why they get away with this, because they are private companies. And I love when people say that, when people complain about censorship and somebody says, well, they're private companies, they can do what they want. Yes, I understand that technically they can do what they want, but they're still working under the thumb of our government. So they're acting as government actors, and they're not being subjected to the same rules, even though that's what they're essentially doing.
Yeah, 100%. All right, so I think we flushed out this idea, and hopefully I put some nuggets in your idea. And if there's anything I can do to help you, please let me know. I have a small channel.
Do you have a connection to Joe Rogan? You have a connection to Joe Rogan, we'd appreciate it.
Yeah, we just hit 3,000 subscribers, so we over here still trying to grow and make our way over here. But definitely let me know if there's anything I can help other than the Joe Rogan Connect. I definitely don't have that one there. But so I want to move on, and if you have anything else you want to talk about this before I move on?
No, that's great. I appreciate you giving that airtime, because really I didn't know other people knew, because it was sort of like in my head. I guess my partner, who does also handle social media, probably put something out there.
No,
and that's you got,
I forgot where I saw it. I don't know if you were on that marathon and might have mentioned something, because I know I popped in there. But
it's possible. Like we talked about it, but I wasn't really specific. But my whole goal is to stick it to the powers that be.
Definitely. No, it was definitely a YouTube where you were talking about leaders coming, like progressive left media, working together. And that's when I hit you in the comment, and I think I was lucky enough that you were able to answer back, and I was like, yeah, we definitely got to talk about this. We got to get leaders together. Yeah, definitely. So I have an idea as well, and this is a project that I'm working on, and let me see if I could bring up, this is the screen. It's here. I just made the website, and it's called the People's Gauntlet, right? And you're the perfect person, or one of the perfect people to talk to about this, because this is, I call it a vetting system. It's like a people's progressive vetting system. And I'd love for you, give me the bad side if you think anything's good or bad. I don't care. Just let me know. But here's the idea. If you are running for office and you are a grassroots candidate, you want our money, you want our volunteers to help you out. Well, the people need something back in return. And there's a lot of times, unfortunately, you go to someone's website that's running for office, they don't have an issues page. They say they're progressive, but you don't know what does that mean, So, also, I've heard Jimmy Dore say this before, that someone would email him and say, hey, I want to come on the show, I want to promote myself, and he'll go, okay, I'll help you out, because, he's had AOC on, he has people on there before. He'll go and look for their website. They don't have a website. Come on, you need to have a website. And I'm curious, a lot of people probably approach you as well, right? So as you continue to grow your channel and you get 1 million subscribers, you're going to be getting hit with 5,000 people, right, are going to be hitting you up and say, hey, can I come on the show? Candidates, right? So I would love for the left media and the left leaders to come together and endorse the People's Gauntlet, and they're going to say, hey, I would love to interview on your show, and to have you come on my show, but I want to see your People's Gauntlet. Now, what does that mean, Jen? Here's the website again. So far, and this is a living document. This could change. If you have an idea, I'll be open to it. So we have 4 legs. Here is the first leg: economy and well-being, the justice leg, democracy leg, and then the policy leg. So the first leg, this is what I really have this one flushed out. And so the idea is you have to have a website, you have to have a YouTube channel, because on your YouTube channel, that's where you're going to show these legs. So this would be a video, this economy and well-being gauntlet. Let's say, Jen, you were running for office, you go on your YouTube and you say, okay, this is my economy and well-being leg, and I'm going to talk about canceling student, here's the topics specifically for this leg: canceling student debt, fair trade, federal jobs guarantee, a Green New Deal, tax reform on the upper class and large corporations, expand Social Security, free public college and trade school, secure a living wage. So I talked to Hector Oseguera, who's one of the guys I love.
I know him.
Oh, exactly. In New Jersey, he ran already. And one of the concerns, I told him about this idea, and he's like, well, it will be tough to have all my policy flushed out before I run. And I said, no. This is for when you're just walking down the street. You think about it this way: if you're a candidate, you're walking down the street, you're giving out your flyers, and someone say, hey, what do you think about canceling student loan debt? Then you will give your spiel. That's how I don't want I don't expect people to have a big policy, 100-page, and they're going to read out.
Mine's really big.
Even though you did. I mean, it's up to the candidate. They can do whatever they want. But this is my vision for this, right? Because you don't want people to fall asleep either at the same time. But to canceling student loan debt, you will give your spiel as if you were on the street and the person had maybe 10, 15 minutes to talk about that specific thing. So if you give each of these topics maybe maybe 10, 15 minutes. That's going to, each leg will come out probably to like, an hour or hour and 20 minutes or something like that. And basically, you're getting a lowdown on what people actually mean. Now, how is that going to help? And I'm going to let you get the mic to give me feedback in a minute. You have races where there's 4 different progressives and you don't know who you want to support or who to choose exactly, right? This progressive gauntlet is going to help you get into the nitty gritty of what people think. You can kind of get a little bit more of what people are enthusiastic about by how much attention they give to a certain topic, or if they have a personal story or something like that. So for example, I made a video about Colin Allred. He was a Justice Democrat that ran, and then he later dropped, I don't know if he dropped out or if they dropped him, but I know for a fact he dropped Medicare for All like a bad habit once he got into, is this the first time you're hearing about this?
Yeah, but I've heard about. But look, other people have done that.
Yeah. So he dropped Medicare for All like it was a bad habit once he got elected. And I always wondered. I'm like, hey, if he would have went through these gauntlets, right? And so this is the economy gauntlet. You have the justice gauntlet. So I got to finish out these other questions, fill it out. But here's the justice. I'm not going to go through all of them. But
so are you talking about this in terms of like how, for example, when I became a BNC candidate, in order to be a BNC candidate, you had to subscribe to their 21st Century Bill of Rights, which was basically, it was great. And I recommend anybody looking at that because the way it's written is really good. The 21st Century Bill of Rights, and it addresses all these things, right? So that was the baseline of what we had to agree with in order to be on that slate. So I like that idea because I think it gives, like if you were to say, oh, I'm a People's Gauntlet candidate, and that means I subscribe to all of these ideas. And I also like your idea. What would also be helpful for people, especially new candidates, is basically you're providing them a blueprint for their policy pages.
Exactly.
So you get a candidate and they obviously, like, for example, me, I'll agree with all those things. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to be able to write it all down very well and that I understand the nitty gritty of the policies and da-da-da. And so providing a blueprint for candidates to either adopt as their own or whatever, or to say they are aligned with these policies, I think is a good idea.
Yeah, so I'm not even looking for people to say they align with every single policy. I just want them to tell me where you stand on it. So, for example, we talked about this before, that certain candidates don't fit in every district, right? Or even, how they look. But, like, if you're in a moderate district or in a super conservative whatever, and for example, I'm trying to think of sex work, right? That's not on here, but let's say it was on here. That's not going to play within a super conservative district. So you might go through the People's Gauntlet, and if it came to that topic, you say, you know what, that's something that it needs to be regulated, but I don't believe in it or whatever. The people in your district might appreciate that. So I'm not trying to dictate what people believe. That's the point I'm trying to make. I just want you to address, I want to know where you as a candidate stand. So even Palestine and Israel conflict.
Well, that was one I was going to tell you. So that's the one issue. I call Israel the third rail. The one issue, and it's very specific to my district, that my take on that, as a Jewish person, as somebody who grew up raised by post-Holocaust fear-based mentality grandparents, and a lot of those people are still in this district. So, if I were to go BDS, there's no chance. That's just not going to fly. And quite honestly, and I always say this to people, a representative's job is to represent their constituents, not to do what you think they should do from somewhere else. So like you said, if I'm coming from a conservative place, then I should be fighting for those conservative policies, whether or not I even personally agree with them. Your job is a representative. So when people judge representatives, my first question is, are they representing their constituents? And if they are, they're doing their job. That's it. It isn't about my opinion about anything, like are they doing, and by doing their job, I say you're representing the majority. You can't hit it at, look, there's always going to be people that don't agree, but right?
No, 100%. So that's the exact point I'm trying to make. It's just, Mike Gravel, he had a line. He had a line back in 2008 when he ran for president that it always stuck in my mind. He said when he got to the Senate, when he got to Congress, he was thinking, man, how did I get here? This big accomplishment. Then he looked around and he saw everybody else and he's like, how the heck did all these other guys get here? Like, because a lot of these guys, we think of these Congress people as these high esteemed people, but a lot of times they don't know a lot of stuff. We know we're more qualified than they are, right? So that's the idea with this. And even if I don't know certain things, like you said, this kind of forces people to get educated on certain topics, reparations or anything else that's on here, sex work, all these other things that's on here. They can get educated on the idea of what it is, and so they can then have a stance. They don't have any excuse if somebody asks them. At least if you're against it, you can at least say, I'm sorry, but my conservative values, I can't be for that, or you can be for it. So pick apart.
I actually see it in two ways what you're talking about. So and this is something, and again, I would refer you to the 21st Century Bill of Rights, because what was so cool about it was it wasn't specific policy for the exact reason that we're talking about, is that not all demographics and districts agree on policy. There were common threads. So you can agree that everybody deserves to live a life of dignity, and everybody deserves to have their civil liberties, and you can agree on principles without necessarily agreeing on the policy to get there. And there are certain ideas that are non-negotiable. There are certain things that in
Medicare for all, that's for me.
Medicare for all. But for example, the key thing to me that is non-negotiable across the board that is anti-corporate money. Period. I don't care if you're conservative or if you're progressive. And my platform, Generational Change, we will platform any candidate that is non-corporate and non-establishment, whether or not they have conservative values or whether or not, because we're about platforming people that are getting stifled by the establishment, regardless of what their policies are. But the key underlying factor is campaign finance reform, in a sense that we won't platform anybody that takes corporate dollars.
So until you become get 1 million subs, and you have everybody and their mother trying to get on your show, that's when you can say, hey, did you do the People's Gauntlet?
I would do that. And I think that, so basically it would be almost like a psychological obstacle course for them. So you have to at least address these issues.
Yes. And the only way this could get off the ground is that if I can get everyone on board. I'm not exactly sure, because I'm still fleshing this out. I would love any input you have. And the website is thepeoplesgauntlet.com. I don't even need to be like the founder. This doesn't need to be my idea. It's my baby.
You're
right
like
now.
Me like that. I don't care.
I don't care. I just want to get it out there. And even if people say, hey, I want to be a founder, I'll say, hey, you're the founder. I don't even need to have my name on it. I just want people, once we get this settled, because there's another level to this that I'm about to tell you, and I'm hoping you get excited by the second level. Because once I get you, I talked to Nico about it. I talked to Harlan's Media about it. And this is, I'm the type of person, I want to go to everybody on the left. There's people that hate each other. And a Casparian, and Nico, they don't mix water.
Nico and I don't mix either.
Okay, so there you go. But you're my friend.
Actually, he's the only person.
Okay.
In independent media that I really have issue with.
And you're not the first person that said that, but he's a close friend of mine because I've known him for over a year. And before
I want to be very clear about this. What my issues are. They have nothing to do with policy opinion.
Okay.
Any other petty stuff. Yeah. It's what he did to my friend Jordan Cheriton.
Okay.
And so for me, it's about just personal honor and integrity. It has nothing to do with he said something I don't like on his show or it's nothing like that. but so for me, that is an issue. But I love the idea. I would still be part of a project if it's something I believed in, regardless of who else was part of it.
Well, Jordan is somebody that I have DM with on Twitter, and I'm hoping to do the same thing I'm doing now. I'm going to try to set up a interview. Not what is this? I hate calling this an interview, but it's a strategy session, right? I'm here with Jen. We strategizing about how to move the progressive movement forward, and I'm hoping with Jen. I'm hoping with Nomiki Kantz. I'm hoping with. I already talked to Harlan's Media. Who else?
Jordan would be great because he definitely is on board. He was one of the reasons we started really thinking about going after big tech.
Okay.
Jordan is definitely somebody who is suffering the wrath of big tech, for sure.
So Humanist
Jamal
Report.
Thomas is another
Jamal
one.
Thomas. These are all people that follow my account, and I some of them I've DM'd with. So I'm hoping that little angle I can say, hey, can I bring you on the show and sell you this idea? And the goal is once we have a good 10 people, at least let's say we have a good 10 people who are saying, and you guys all interview candidates, but if you say, hey, before you come on my show, I would love for you to come on my show, but I need you to do the People's Gauntlet. And I'm not even trying to be strict, like, okay, Jen, you're out of it because you had somebody on your show that didn't do the People's Gauntlet. I'm not being like that.
They just have to deal with the issues. They have to address. These are the key issues that we expect you to address one way or another.
And it's almost a way, because you're going to have, as you continue to grow, every day you're going to have like 20 people asking to come on your show, so you got to have some way to filter them out, but also raise the standards for progressives, for grassroots. That's the big thing I want to do. We're raising the standard for the people that we're going to give our time to, we're going to give our money to, we're going to volunteer for, and so here's the next level of the idea. Once we have these 10 people that are agreeing to do this, hopefully we can start working together and having an infrastructure, and we're going to have what I'll call the People's Champion. That's the next level, right? So let's say, for example, I don't know, in your race, Jen, in 2020, did you have other people running as well, or was it just you against Debbie?
Oh, in our primary, it was just us. Nobody else.
Okay. Well, let's say, in another race, I think the race with Shalala, I believe her name is. I know my guy Gabe, who was on the Political Junkies, he was so mad at that race because he had his pick, but there were like four other progressives, like solid progressives that were running, and then you had Donna Shalala, who just slipped by with I think it was 30% that she slipped by.
Well, she lost her seat. So
we know. She lost her seat. But if the progressives would have consolidated like how Obama consolidated the moderates, we could have had a progressive in that seat, right? So this is the idea with the People's Gauntlet. This is the next level of this idea. So I'm still, this is a living document. This is a living idea. I don't know exactly how we're going to do it, but the 10 people that come together and say, if you want to come on our show, a month or 2 months before the primary, we would come together and we would vote who will become the People's Champion. So let's say there's 4 progressives. They all went on various shows and they did the People's Gauntlet. And we said, okay, we got to vote who's going to be the People's Champion. Boom, we pick, let's say, Jen, you're in that race. Okay, we're going to pick Jen. And then we all come out, we declare she's the People's Champion. Now we're doing Obama's job in a sense. We're kind of picking the person we want to move forward. Everybody else is their business that they want to stay in, but you're going to not consolidate the vote. You're going to split the vote. If you stay in, we're trying to consolidate the vote. And what do you think about that side of the idea?
I think it's good. And again, this brings us back to the ego thing, because a lot of people are in this for whatever reasons they're in this. And so I'm on this Catching Fire advisory board. And one of the things we do is we review submissions from candidates that want endorsements. And one of the questions that's asked is, what do you do if there's multiple progressives in your race? Like, what do you do? And I always look at that answer very specifically, because I think it speaks as to somebody's ability to be a team player and whether they're in it for them or whether they're in it for the policy. And for example, one answer I saw recently is I would convince them all to get behind me. See, that's not the kind of answer that I want to hear. Whereas another answer was I would work with all these people to figure out who would be the best person to be able to bring the message forward.
Yes.
Okay. So there is a mindset. That's where it brings back to bringing it full circle to the small ego, thick skin.
Yeah.
Because if you're in this for the right reasons and it isn't about you, then you're going to get behind whichever person has the most likelihood of pushing the issues forward that you care about. And so I agree with what you're saying, like in theory, but how do you get people to put their egos aside and realize it's not about them? And unfortunately, it plagues the left as much as anywhere else.
Yeah, so it's not going to happen. We can't control what other people do. All we can do is like shame them. We got to make it. We'll make it a way.
Yeah, you can do that, but we're not like Obama. We can't make a phone call and have everybody get on board and in the last minute. But that is a problem. Now, that's not a problem that's ever going to be in my district.
Yeah. This is.
I don't think we have two progressives to rub together here.
Oh. So I think. So the question is, like, do we have just a coalition of the left media who votes, or how? I would love to have a system where we bring in the people to vote, so I think if we could have the people to vote and have it in a secure way,
well, that would be part of your website, like on your People's Gauntlet. You could have, what you could do is candidates would go through it and they could upload answers. You're going to upload your answers and you don't necessarily need to do anything with it until you do. It's just an information resource for somebody to look up how so-and-so answered on this. But then ultimately that could be how people vote.
I'm even thinking, and you tell me what you think. So on this website, if we can have members, right? So the members, you pay as low as $1, because I don't want it to be a thing where a poll tax. You know how back in the day,
right? No.
I don't want it to be a poll tax, but we want people to at least donate $1, do $1 a month kind of Patreon donation. And what would happen is I don't want any of this money, right? I don't.
They have to have skin in the game.
Yes,
that's all it is.
You got to have skin in the game, but also let's say we do get the fortunate of 10,000 people join the site. That would be massive, right? Now. You have a little bit of money that once you become the people's champion, we can at least give you $1,000 to help out with leaflets. So you told me, as a past candidate, what was $1,000 to you? Was that a
lot?
See, there you go.
I mean, look, Tim Canova ran his race in 2016. He had $4 million and an endorsement from Bernie.
What?
We had $400,000 and a pandemic, and we got the same amount of votes that he did.
Oh, wow. That is crazy. Oh, man. Jen, the time flew by 11 a.m. I had so many more questions.
Okay. But I would definitely, you and I can definitely chat at some point if you want about this, and I would definitely be willing. I tell everybody I am game to helping anything, any strategy, anyone who is working for the mission of pushing these policies forward. I have no ego about it whatsoever.
Awesome.
So any help I can be, I'd be more than happy to do that.
I'm holding you to that. I'm putting you down on my list. I have Heartlands Media, I have Nico, and now I have Jen. And I'm coming out for more people. I'm going to do this. And I'm hoping we could get something. This will be the beginning of an infrastructure where we can really collaborate. That's the goal also. So Jen, thank you so much. It was great chatting with you, and I hope we'll definitely be chatting more in the future and strategizing anytime you have strategy ideas that you want to flesh out with somebody. And I like doing it on the show because you're bringing the people involved. I saw some people in the chat really like the idea, and we can use our brains, including the people, together. That's the best. The way AOC what I want to say, she was a grassroots candidate, and when she got elected, all we see her now is on Rachel Maddow and all these other. I wish she would have hugged the left media leader.
I would never go on Rachel Maddow. That's the thing. And here's what I think would be really cool. If I would be the person that would get elected, and would only go on independent media.
That's what I'm talking about.
I wouldn't even give CNN or MSNBC the time of day. I would consider going on Tucker Carlson, depending on the topic.
But this is the thing. I know, Jen, and I'm sorry. I know I really like leaving at the 11 o'clock, but I just want to make this point real quick. This is the thing. This is a symbiotic relationship. This is a synergistic relationship. Bernie lost because the mainstream media went after him in 2020. Both times they went after him. So if our progressive leaders started hugging the left media, and it could be on whoever they feel comfortable with. You know, it could be TYT, it could be Jen, it could be Jimmy Dore, whoever, you know, logos on Jimmy Dore, whoever you feel comfortable with, go on their channels, because guess what? If you're not really going on mainstream media that much, mainstream media has to cover their clips on their channel. I saw Convo Couch had a clip from the insurrection that I saw on CNN. You know, I saw Jank has a couple of clips that is going on mainstream media, and that's going to give you guys publicity, and it's going to bring more legitimacy, right? So anyway, we could talk all day about this type of stuff.
That's what I would do. I wouldn't I would be probably like the first elected congressperson that wouldn't give any of those media the time of day.
And I wouldn't be mad at you if you went on there. All I'm saying is give the same love back to the left media, the people that you started with, you know, that they gave you your first, you know, open audience. So anyway.
I agree, which is also why I'm incredibly loyal to Jordan.
Yeah. Much love to Jordan.
He was one of the first people. He was like one of my first interviews, and always on board. So.
Yeah, I watched. He was at Staten Island recently with the union rally with Smalls, and man, he's doing big things over there, and I like to share his stuff.
We had Chris on, so anybody can also
Chris,
on our. We have an interview with Chris Smalls. Yeah, he's great.
I can't wait for him to run for something. That'll be interesting, right? That would be interesting. All right, thank you, Jen, so much for coming on the show. I want to give a little shout out, some love to the chat. CMT63, Claire, Holly Horn came out, Harold White, AKA, and a whole bunch of, that's the last of my list out there, but Judas came out as well. All right, thank you so much, Jen. We're going to do this again because I had a lot of fun, and everyone have a